we were doing Pinnacle Mountain, we had a good conversation about relationships, marriage, and communication.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, you don't even look that old to have been married for
20 some years.
Yeah, I'm like, you ain't, how you been married for 20 years? You barely 20 yourself.
Don't make me feel good in here, but yeah.
Right, so, but I know a lot of women now, like me and my friends talk about, especially being in an urban area, we weren't raised for marriage,
right?
Or having healthy relationship,
mm-hmm.
communication skills, and things like that. It was more about survival, self-survival, and things like that. And then the more we got, our parents are still trying to instill pride in us and all this kind of stuff. So, mm-hmm. but it was more of an individual and not a community thing, true. And so that makes it difficult to transition into marriage. So I know when I ask people about their relationships, for instance, I have this rule that I don't really take advice from single people. So, not about a long-term relationship. And then when I ask you how it was that you and your relationship lasted so long, like so many other people, you talked about communication and partnership and working together. Mm-hmm. But the thing that really stuck out was that you said neither one of you decided to quit at the same time.
Right. Absolutely. And actually, I heard someone say that years ago, and I didn't know what they meant by it mm-hmm. until, of course, I had been married a little bit longer. And it may have been somebody like Denzel. It was somebody that's been married for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. And I didn't understand what he meant until I realized, like, if there's not at least one person in the union that's fighting or wanting it to stay together, then you just have, you have nothing. Both of you want to give up. And so it's not that you don't, it's not a utopia where, you just never want to give up, everything is blissful and this is my best friend, Mm-hmm. I mean, even with your best friend, you're going to have disagreements, you're going to have trials, tribulations, and you go through, you go through different phases in your life. If you think about in 20 years, especially women, I mean, I think we go through way more changes than men do. Mm-hmm. You can kind of meet a man and who you met 20 years ago, he might still be that person 20 years later, with some growth and he'll evolve. But I mean, if he liked, the Steelers back then, he liked to, drive his cars, he's going to pretty much be the same. But we're going to go through the natural hair movement, we're going to go through weight changes and trying to, even though they do too, but yeah. We evolved so many times. And I saw this article recently where this guy was like, in order for him to be with his wife for so many years, he had to embrace every different woman that came along. Because, and he talked about that, like, at one point she was, like for me, for instance, when my husband met me, I was in my early 20s. So I was partying, having a good time, mm-hmm. vibrant, I went out every Saturday night. Mm-hmm. That's how we met. When we met, we were on the same accord. Mm-hmm. Then, I was working at Candlelight then. But then, when I went to started doing poetry, and all of a sudden I'm a poet. I hadn't wrote poetry before then. Mm-hmm. Now I'm a poet. Now I'm going to the poetry scene. I have no interest in going to the clubs. Mm-hmm. I'm dressing different. My vibe is different. I'm woke. Now you gotta embrace that. Okay. And that wasn't his thing, but he would come stop through every now and then. And I'm doing plays. I was, I graduated from college. I started teaching and stuff like that. Now I'm a teacher, and now I'm doing this. Now, so I went through a lot of different changes. I used to have my hair silky straight, long. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, I went to the fro. Okay. And so I just think that we, through all the different evolutions, and there was times where I felt like, are you going to evolve? Mm-hmm. And we were just kind of, you think about it, in that amount of time, you're not who you used to be. Mm-hmm. And so trying to find that balance, and I became vegan. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So he wasn't vegan. So it's like, just kind of trying to find that balance, and also, whatever other things may come your way. I mean, whatever you may be dealing with in your relationship, financial situations, ups and downs, when I met him, I was I guess I was doing pretty good. You know, it was probably one of the things that attracted him too. Was, you know, I was a woman that had to, you know, handle my own. By the time I started doing my plays, I didn't have any money. You know what I mean?
I got you. Because you were pouring so much money,
Right.
time, money, and energy into that.
He was like, you're the busiest woman that never has any money. Because I had meetings all day, every day. You know. And then I
can relate. I can relate.
And then I went, you know, after that, I went back into the career field, and now all of a sudden I'm, you know, I'm making good money per year, you know, and so it was just, it's a lot to go through just regularly on your own, and then to have to go through that journey with someone else that may be dependent on you for certain things, you know. And so, I mean, and that's aside from anything else that could come your way, like infidelity and stuff like that. Thank God we didn't have to deal with that, but just all those other things just add to just being with, you know, with someone for 20 years. I mean, if you've been able to maintain a friendship for 25, 30 years, that's something. So imagine being in the same house with that friend. You know, I have friendships that have been over 20 years strong, you know, but we don't live together. Understood. And we don't even live in the same state.
Understood. Understood. I know if I would have got married early, I know I would have been divorced a couple of times, because the evolution for me was tough, because I just didn't know. I didn't have I was just struggling. You know, it was a self-validation, it was an esteem issue. I was looking for somebody to make me happy. And I heard a million times that you can't depend on other people to make you happy, you have to make you happy, which made no sense. Not that it didn't make sense to me, I didn't understand how to do that. So as I started figuring it out, just by experiencing things, exposure, and trying things, and research, and classes, and, you know, just being intentional about this self-exploration thing, as I started figuring the pieces out, like, oh, that was a result of that. That's one result of that. And again, that's where this program comes from. I figure if I kind of found it, maybe somebody could benefit. They don't have to, exactly. They don't have to start all over. They can probably jump in and well, try this.
Right, and I wish I would have had that. You know, me and my husband, we talked about that before, that we got married so young before we knew each other. He's definitely not the same man he was then. He may have not gone through as many changes, but we definitely, that's not something that he and I often talk about, that we didn't even know what to do, what to look for. Like, I didn't know. People tell you to look for, like, infidelity, look for drug use, look for abuse, like physical abuse, but they don't tell you about, like, how not to be selfish, how not to even want a spouse that's selfish, or someone that's caring, or someone that is, you know, we don't talk about those things because we're so worried about these big monsters. But those are the things that make you last in marriage, is when you can truly get down to the character and how you treat people, and nobody really talks about that. So we were so young that a lot of our stuff just came trial and error, you know. And so now that we're both in our 40s, we're like, okay, now we know how to treat people. You know, we never even had a conversation like, what are you looking for in a spouse? What am I looking for? It was just like, okay, you know, I'm feeling you, you feeling me, well, okay, let's make it happen, you know.
Okay.
And so, you know, and we rushed. We weren't intentional about it. You know, it's like once we went out on a few dates, we just stayed around each other all the time and never asked any important questions. And we were so distracted by so many other things that we were doing, like hanging out and, you know, having a lot of company, and, you know, you just don't even really get to know what's your vision of marriage. We never had them conversations. And he's younger than me, so it was like, you know, and then you know, I got pregnant. So, you know, what are you gonna do? Then go ahead and get married. You know, go ahead and make it happen. And so, we probably had more conversations probably the last 3 or 4 years about what you actually are looking for, you know. And those things, they have changed, and, you know, since from the beginning, because the beginning we were just looking for somebody that, okay, I love you, you love me, Good enough.
Mhm.
You know, we ain't asked about family trauma. None of that stuff. It was just like, cool. And we both knew that we wanted to make it work throughout the years. So that's, you know, that was the glue, is that we both wanted to make it work. So.
And you loved up and found each other who did have those genuine values, you know, character traits and strengths of the kindness, the cooperation, that kind of stuff. Right. You lucked up in that space.
Some of the time.
Okay.
Some of the time. I mean, we both had our unkind moments, you know.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we're both human, so yeah, we've had our ups and downs with that, where we had to learn how to be, like, how to be kind, how to put somebody else first. And especially, I think the reason why the last 3 or 4 years we've had more conversations about it is because this is the only time that we've been together that it's just been us. Because the kids are grown, they're out of the house.
Okay.
So now, okay.
Hey, how are you?
Because we were so focused on, you know, going through the motions of the kids got to go to daycare, and the kids got to go to school, the kids got to go here, the kids got that, they got band practice, they got this, they got that. And once that's done, you're just sitting there looking at each other.
Okay.
So, unless you get married and you don't have children, then you can kind of focus on those things early on. But we just had to, you know, you just had to make sure you. And I think that's the beauty of one, having kids when you're older, but also if you have them when you're young, the benefits of having grandchildren is because then you can slow down and you can appreciate, you know, because it's not all about gotta get them to school, gotta get them to practice, gotta make sure he's dressed, gotta get school clothes. You know, it's more so appreciating the act of parenting, and I think that gets lost sometimes when you're just, you know, trying to make things.
And the active parenting is basically the time you spend with them to kind of feed into them, not distract them, but to help them develop their personality and their values and the things that their purpose and the things that they're going to contribute to.
Right, where it doesn't feel like a job. It doesn't feel like, you know, things I have to do. I got, you know, and some people, you know, especially now I notice people are having children later, and that's good, because to me it makes you get into that place, you know. I was young, so, you know, I first went through the phase of wanting to experience, you know, what 20-year-olds want to experience. And then after that, you know, my plays and starting businesses. And, you know, we've always had family time, we've always traveled, and but it's still, like, I think that I probably wouldn't do anything else aside from just parent. You know, if I could go back, I would just parent. But, you know, you still have hopes and dreams and things you want to do, especially when you're young, that parenting becomes one of the priorities, not the priority, because you want your career, you know, unless you're going to be a stay-at-home mom, you know, you want your career, you want your dreams, you know. I was pregnant at 19, so I had my son at 20. So, I mean, and 40 seems far away.
Exactly.
So you want to kind of experience.
Until you get 35. Right. You're like, whoa.
Well, now I'm 40, and I'm like, if I'd have knew I was going to have all this time, I could have just parented, got that out the way, then chased, you know. And when I did my book, MEdusa, I actually didn't publish it until my son, and that was intentional, until my youngest son was in college.
Oh, okay.
So that way, I'm done now, with that, at least with that aspect of it. And so now I can do this, and I can go travel, and, you know. So if I could give one piece of advice, especially to young women, it would be to, if you're going to chase, you know, your career, or your passion, or whatever, you're going to start a company or business, do that first. And then, you know, a lot of times they gear us as women to get married. That's because that's where your worth is set, you know, in society. Get married, having children, and all that kind of stuff. And that's fine if that's what you want to do. But if you have something that you want to do career-wise, and you want to get something established first, then do that first. And and to be honest, the kids were probably less demanding than the husband. The husband was more demanding than the kids. So it was just, and some people can probably balance that. But, you know, as far as me and my advice, it would be like, you can't give, like, you know how they say you can't feed two bears. You can't, you know what I'm saying? And you can't give it your all. You can give, some to your career and some to your family. But, I knew a lot of young women that were coming up into, their professions. One young woman was a model, and she had just got some, she was going to Fashion Week in New York, and she was going to Paris. And I was like, maybe because a guy had proposed to her right before she got ready to leave. I was like, you might want to consider that. Because one is going to take away from the other. And at that time, she was probably like 19, 20.
Okay.
And she went the route of marriage. And so the career and stuff kind of went down.
Yeah.
And that's your choice.
Right.
Because I'm not saying I would choose my career over marriage. I'm just saying if that's what I wanted to do.
Right.
If I could go back, I would probably choose family and hold off on a career. But if I'm going to do my career,
then you're going to focus on your career.
Yeah. And then move into family. And that way I can have my stuff established. Because as an artist, you know that's not really very lucrative. So, so I was doing all this hustling, and as opposed to like creating a foundation first, and then bringing a family into that. And I've noticed a lot of the younger women are starting to have their careers and establish themselves, finish in college. Like I had both my kids at my college graduation. You know what I mean? But a lot of the younger women now they're doing their college and stuff, and they're getting their careers established, and they're buying homes, and they're doing all that stuff, and then they're having kids. Versus, my generation, we had kids, and then we had to figure out what.
Well, there's a conversation out there now that the longer you wait, maybe the more difficult it is to find a mate because the mates are already married out.
I can see the pros and cons.
Yeah, but you would just have to decide which one.
And one of the pros of having a child early, and I will say this, is that for my body, it was the best.
Okay.
And and I'm not saying just physically how it looked, but I'm saying just
rejuvenation.
Well, it takes so much out of you. You know what I'm saying? And after 35, I think 40, you're high risk, and I was physically at my best then.
Okay.
I couldn't imagine I'm 45 now. I couldn't imagine 45 and just with my unique, my unique body. You know what I'm saying? I'm not speaking for anyone else because I know other people that do, and they're very successful at it. But for me, I don't know that I could handle a pregnancy right now.
Okay. Okay. Miss Coffy, I appreciate you so much.